do good after a while.
Other than I got up and had to get on the line.
Well, I didn't take him, I'll take him out.
Right. All right, somebody open this up and let's get rolling.
Open us up there, Lance, please.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for allowing us to gather here today, Lord. Just thank you for everybody that came into the building, Lord. I pray that Monty teaches the word today, Lord, and we get a better understanding of what he has set for us, Lord. Just thank you. In Yeshua's name we pray. Amen.
One thing I forgot to tell you,
Uh-huh.
that Scott did say this morning, he wanted me to tell you all, thank you for all the prayers, and to just keep praying.
Well, we got that.
So, that was the most important part of it.
Yeah.
He's coming out.
The big thing we got to remember with Zeke is not a good patient. So, and he don't like being confined. He's going through this change. So y'all can just remember that. It kind of bounces on where we're going to go.
I got one other thing to add.
Sure.
Real quick. Me and Chris talked, he got a hold of his brother, he's looking and everything for one to buy, for the plumbing out there, the biodegradable plumbing thing or whatever, where that tank is.
Biotangers.
Yeah, and to do that and everything. Chris said he's already priced him everything, just proposing it to y'all. He's already priced one about $1,200. You're putting that, that's buying all the material, putting it in the ground ourselves, getting that. So just letting you know where we're standing at and that. We're gonna do it, we're just gonna get it together. He's gonna check with his brother first on and see if his brother, he'll be here in a minute and see what his brother says, if he can get one any cheaper than that. But that's what it'd be, that put in the ground, church would be done, we run the new plumbing and everything, and be
Good.
done with it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, last week we started to kind of not necessarily a shift, but kind of more of a reality. The thing is that we're living in a world that, I think a lot about the time from Ezekiel up until the New Testament time. There's like a 400-year or so span that basically God was quiet. People went about, did their thing, had their little sense of religion, but yet God wasn't in the mix. And last week, we kind of touched on the fact, well, what do you do when God's quiet? In other words, I like it personally. For me, it's like this morning. I mean, I would sit there and I was tossing and turning thinking, okay, when you going to talk, God? When, I'm waiting for inspiration because that's how he's always done it. He's always given me inspiration. That sometimes, I remember being a person who sat in church, and you always hear people talk about, well, God spoke to me, and God, laid this on my heart. Well, he never laid it on my heart, and so, I'm seem like I'm letting everybody else is experiencing God, and I'm not experiencing God. Then, once God started speaking, I think that I call it like you want to call it, anything. I would say it's almost like the roses that we used to have on Huddle Street. We had some of the most beautiful roses there was. But the problem is that the way they all bloomed at the same time, and when all your roses bloom at the same time, you don't really appreciate the individual roses. Does that make sense? Because you see all of it. It's all there. And the thing is that it's almost easy to forget. You get used to God speaking. It's just like, I think about the words that my daddy would say, or some of my mentors, that the words that they would invest in me, the things that they would share with me. Now that my mentors are gone, what do I have left? What they shared. I get nothing new. The thing is that there are times that if you become dependent upon every time you're in trouble, financial trouble, or whatever it is, and you run to your parents and they bail you out, what do you learn from that? Learn absolutely nothing. Why? Because you've always got that safety net. You've not built anything on your own. You've not had any accountability because you've always had that safety net. They say that, like for circus people, you don't learn how to walk on the high wire really until there's no net. And when there's no net, David, at that point, guess what you do? You know, if you're taking on a job, and every time you take on a job, you've got somebody there who knows how to do the job, then you really are not learning anything. It's when you got to face it yourself. You got to face these decisions. You got to face these repercussions. And it's the same thing true with, like, for me, and I understand where God has been for the past few weeks. For me, part of it is me. I will be honest with you. Part of it is me because I've been consumed by getting other things taken care of, get everything caught up. And so my study time has lagged. But yet, it doesn't mean that I'm in sin. It doesn't mean anything. It's just the reality. You know, I think that a lot of times preachers, you know, I told you the story about the guy that I used to be friends with. And he was the praise and worship director at a big church. Well, don't worry, he made good money leading praise and worship. And when he wasn't doing praise and worship in the church, now he was a full-time staff person and made good money. When he wasn't preparing for the music and getting practiced up and all that, occasionally he'd have to go outside David and then mow the yard, do little things like that. But that was his job. Can you imagine having a job, Emily, where all you had to do was prepare music?
That'd be awesome.
You know, what is your stress? I've told people before that I would personally freak out if I was a full-time pastor. Because if I was a full-time pastor, what would I do? I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't mind going visiting people. I have a hard time going and visiting people who are complainers. I don't know about you, Dora. I mean, you probably feel the same way. You know, when they're constantly bringing you down, you're like, give me somebody else who wants to, you know, who has a better attitude toward these things. It's just like a lady I was talking to yesterday. And she was talking about the community that they live in and how she addressed it. She said, most people who have these homes here, they're condominiums, she said, they don't leave, and when they leave, they're going someplace else. And so basically they die and they move on, or they go to a nursing home or something like that. But I liked her attitude of how she said that. You know, it wasn't negative, it wasn't anything. But I couldn't imagine being a full-time pastor, full-time teacher. Well, sure enough, and the other side about being a full-time pastor or being a full-time teacher, you realize that you are, how can I say this? You are at the whims of the board. And so we've all seen how church boards change their mind. And so sure enough, this guy decided that he wanted to put, I think his son or daughter, who was it, Amber? Do you remember? Was it son or daughter over praise and worship? And this guy got fired. He had to go get a job. And Lance, his only job that he had skills to do was praise and worship. That was his skill set. And so he ended up getting a job working at Pepsi. And his job was to go to Kroger's and carry all these Pepsi cans in store, put them on the shelf, and go to his next one. And next thing you know, he got a bag brace because he ain't used to work. He's used to playing piano and singing, playing guitar and singing. That was his job. And man, I remember, and I've told you all this, but the thing is that he was complaining and just griping. I don't know why God. I said, well, maybe God has taken you down this road so you can understand what we feel like. Because, you know, you're up here Wednesday night, and y'all want us to come to church on Wednesday night. And I said, honestly, not personal. I don't want to be on church on Wednesday night. I just don't want to go, because usually by Wednesday night, I'm sick of people. I'm sick of work. You know, it's like we have a thing. Sometimes we actually obey it, but we've got this little rule that it's called no work Mondays. So when we get home, Amber, what do we try to do? Rest. Because it's Monday, you're getting back into the groove, you're over the weekend, you've done all your things. And it's just like Monday's like, oh my gosh, and the kids want to come over, like, look, we have no kid night too. but go away. We don't want to hear y'all. You'll go play somewhere else. We love y'all, but go. The thing is that if you've never experienced that, then how can you relate to that? Just like I told him, I said, you know, man, maybe you need to understand what it's like for us. You know, why we don't want to jump up and down and do all these different things, because honestly, we're sick of people. We're sick of this whole thing, and we just want to go home and just sit on the couch and vegetate. I think preachers are as well guilty of feeling or remembering what people go through that are not. I know myself when I study, you know, it's like Jake's been with me for the last week, and I told him, I said, dude, I said, I understand. I said, I'm probably driving you nuts. Because, Chris, I plan everything down to the second of which job I start first. Because if I start this one first, then I can get this one timed, then this one can be dry, and then I can move to do this next one. Because, see, I'm lazy. And this is what I tell everybody. I'm lazy. So the old saying is that you find the hardest job, give it to the laziest guy, he'll find the easiest way to do it. I'm lazy because I want to get through work. Because I got stuff I want to do, but I can't get to where I want to go because I've got to get through this stuff. So I try to figure out the best way to do it. And bless his heart, like Jacob, he'll sit there and he's like listening to me plan all the way, every day of everything we're going to do. And I said, you're probably ever, you know, because I'm the guy who does research on underwear.
Good for you.
You know, and the thing is that underwear makes a difference, Lance, when you're outside. Socks make a difference when you're outside. Your clothes make a difference. When you're sitting behind a desk, it don't make a difference. You know, you're sitting behind a desk and, oh, I got to put my jacket on, I got to go outside. I've been that person. I'm not that person no more. So now I have to build my wardrobe based upon what I'm going to be doing and where I'm going to be doing it at. So I'm sitting here and I have all these things in my mind, and then when I start studying, y'all see me and y'all have to, sometimes I look at y'all and I'm like, bless y'all's heart, because I know that y'all are looking at me like, oh my God, where the crap is he getting this stuff from? It's like I was doing this, I've got this little thing, and I was listening to some of the watchers that Enoch talked about. And it's pretty interesting, and I was like, okay, that's kind of a cool study, but sometimes I think that we also need to build another, I would call it, like last week we established some core values of scriptures that I myself have molded and try to mold myself around these things. You know, and why do I do that? So as an example, and I have gotten used to inspiration from God. I don't want to live in a world without inspiration from God. I actually said something the other day that my wife says, that's a good idea. I wrote it down. That she said, that's a good idea. But I was sitting there, and you know, these are things you take for granted, but you know, Chris, you know, when we're working for a living, and Lance, you're the same way. When you're working for a living and you're trying to build a business, and all of a sudden an ideal comes to you, where did that ideal come from? And it wasn't my ideal. So, you know, it's just things that we take for granted, but yet it's one of those things that you start going, well, wait a second. So I take care of these condominiums, and what they are, they're older people who have been professional people through their lives. They sold their career, they sold their homes, all that. Usually their husbands or wives have passed. And so they've got these condominiums. One of the hardest things right now to find is good, trustworthy people who actually can do work, and who will actually do work and do it at a fair price, and that's, you know, that they know that they have got a budget and is willing to work with them. And so the thing is that I'm sitting there and we're doing a job, and all of a sudden I was telling Amber, I said, you know, I said, I can't remember how I said it, but the bottom line is that I need to start giving these people here cards and letting them know that, hey, if you got something wrong on the inside, because see, on the inside, they have to take care of it. On the outside, the company takes care of it. And so they're all time. And so how this all sprung up, there was a lady at another set of condominiums over in West Little Rock. She said, I can't get anybody. Can you give me a price? And she said, yeah. And so I was listening to what she was saying and what her complaints was with the guy who gave her a price. And it dawned on me, hey, this is my market. This is the area that I need to be thinking about next. Because if this slows down, I'll have this. And so I've been going and telling these people, and every person that I've told has all been like, yeah, I didn't know you did that. And I'm like, what do you mean you didn't know I did that? I'm taking care of the property on that side. So you do the stuff on the inside too? Yeah, it's warm. I'd much rather work on the inside. I said, I'll do anything. Someone says, I've told y'all this. Well, what do you do? And I said, look, I'll fix the flat on your bicycle. If you pay me, I don't care. I just want to work. I want to be able to make money, take care of my family, to build a dream. These are things that I want to do. But where did that inspiration come from? Well, I'll tell you where it come from. I live in a world that I believe that this wasn't money. I live in a world that I believe that this is God. That God is blessing me in doing this thing, but at the same time, He's given me this. That's how I choose to live. Some people say, man, you just had a good idea. I did it. I give all the glory to God. I may be wrong. It may be just me. But I would much rather live in that world that I would give someone and something greater than me and realize the humility of saying that it's not me versus me walking around. Because I've worked with people who's walked around. I did this and I did that. I have to do the things that nobody else can do. This is what I heard my boss say. And he was trying to weld aluminum, and he cannot weld aluminum. He cannot. He said, well, I was watching a YouTube video, and I was watching this. It's so funny because I was thinking about my boss the other day, because there was a guy who wanted this employee, and he got fired because he wanted this employee to teach this other guy, Lance, how to do TIG. And he expected him to be able to do TIG by the end of the day. And the guy finally told him, he said, man, I'll tell you what I'll do. He says, I can't teach him how to do TIG and pass the test by the end of the day. He said, it's taken me my entire career to do this thing. He says, but I'll tell you what I'll do though. I will teach you how to do TIG. And you teach him. This is not my job to teach him, because you're wanting me to teach him how to do my job so you can replace me. I'll teach you. He says, I can't learn it in a day. Then how do you expect him to learn it in a day? So he's talking about how he got fired. Well, my boss was the same way. He would watch these videos and think he could do TIG because he was that person who had to do everything. I would hate to know that I was trapped in that world. I live in this world that, well, you can call me whatever you want to call me, and I don't really care. I live in a world that I believe in a God that cares about what you're doing. I believe that I live in a world. So this morning and last week, it was the same thing. I said, okay, God, what are you going to do? What are you going to inspire me with? What are you going to share? And he said basically the same thing. What do you do when God's quiet? What do you do when you're not getting inspiration? Well, does God not care? Think about it. I love Amber, but Amber and I are two different people. She's not a touchy-feely person. I learned when it's bed at night, you don't snuggle, you don't touch. It's just, again, when I want to get next to you, she's like, that's just how she is. I'm okay with that. I've had friends who have clingy women. Where are you going? How long are you going to be gone? Oh, you can't go. I want to go. No. You need distance. You need distance sometimes. Sometimes, and I know sometimes some of us agree, like, hey, I used to love when my wife say, is there somewhere you can go tonight? Did you have a meeting? I need some time. You need to go. And I'm okay with that. Does that mean that my wife doesn't love me? Absolutely not. But see, I am confident and I am certain that my wife loves me, because my wife is not, her world is not based upon, oh, he didn't buy me no bonbons today. Oh my God, he hates me. I was watching this thing on Living Color, and it was talking about, I love these old little videos, and it talks about where this guy, he come home, his wife, it was talking about the PMS thing, and his wife was just freaking out, going over him about everything. And he's like, what do? I can't win. So they have these little ear things you put in your ear, and it monitors your conversation, and there's a woman that's sitting there, and she's offering him advice on how to deal when his woman is freaking out like that. Things to say, things to not say. And it's this constant guidance. See, that's how I believe that God is. But as well, I don't need to live in the world, and I don't want to live in the world that God, how can I say this? There's a point that every parent wants his people, let me rephrase this, that every parent wants his children to be able to make decisions on their own. And the thing is that, you know, we as parents, we should have done our job. When we didn't do our job, then we can say, hey, look, I tried, you're just stupid. But the thing is that, so here it is today. Last week, we performed an outline. We performed some guidance. So today, let's talk about something. I hear a lot of people got issues with God because they frame God with a sense that all God is rules. God is rules. That God says you can't do this, you can't do that. I don't believe that that's what God is. I just do not believe. I believe that God is a consciousness of morality. As an example, rules dictate. Don't believe it? Go 55 and a 45. Go 55 and a 45. Go 45 in a school zone. Rules. Sell weed next to a school. Rules. Take a gun. There's a subdivision. I seen it the other day when Jacob and I passed it, and I looked over it. You know what the subdivision says on the sign? No guns. I am quite certain that a thief or somebody going to walk in the house, oh my God, I can't take my gun in there. Because they say that the rules are not going to dictate to them. And again, that's why people don't want a God that says rules. To me, there are rules and there are laws, but these rules and these laws are there for our protection. That's what Jesus said. These laws are there for our protection. The things that we should and shouldn't do. We follow the rules because it's easy. Well, I don't want to follow rules. So you feel like you can drive 45 through a school zone. Well, that rule and that law is there to protect your kids. Because I can see Artie, my favorite year was when we had Halloween, when Artie was the sheriff from Toy Story, Woody. And Artie stood out there at our house on Huddle Street and was directing traffic. He was perfect because Artie's got that cop mentality already. He's got that cop personality already. And then for him to have the Sheriff Woody with the gun and all that right there, and the tight suit, it actually fit perfectly. And he's actually following the thing. Rules are not bad. The people who want to live without rules because they don't want to be confined. I don't mind rules. Rules doesn't bother me. But to me, values are what inspire. Morality is what inspires. I personally believe that because the thing is that if God was a rules God, do you think that God would be different than he is right now? What? Think about that thing. If God was a rules God, well, you think about it. We've heard, well, how come God lets this happen? I don't know. How come God let you be stupid? Why do you want to make stupid decisions? That wasn't God. That was you. We want God to intervene to keep these things from happening, but yet we want his intervention to be bound over to here. If you lived in there was a society, and I've told you, if you ever want to read about a society where religion dictated society, read Fox's Book of Martyrs. If you ever want to be blown away, read Fox's Book of Martyrs. One of my favorite ones, and I say a favorite and I use that loosely, but tells a story about a guy. He was on a barge over in England, and he was basically on a ship crossing the channel. And as they're crossing, a man walks in, and this guy was already sitting there. And he goes, guy looked at him. He says, you don't know me, do you? He's like, no. Well, I need your seat. I'm tired of standing. He made this demand. And he says, you have to give, he says, I don't have to give my seat up to you at all. This man was like an archbishop or something like that within the church, kind of a middle manager. He took the guy, they arrested him when they sit there. He called because they used to have religious police, and they pulled him in when the church ran society. What they did, they confined him, I think it was either 30 or 40 days that he had to live in like a little 2x2 box. Then they took him out and they had this big thing that looked like a skillet. And they heated it up and they put him on and they tortured him to death because religion ruled society. And what happened was that men have suffered, women have suffered through the years because when religion ruled society. That wasn't God, that was religion. It was a set of beliefs that people said, well, this is what God says. God doesn't say it. There are certain things that God says, this is wrong, this is wrong. But the thing is that God does not rule. And I say this very cautiously. Because if God did rule, this whole thing would be entirely different. Every one of your lives that are sitting in here in this room right now, our lives would be different. Because again, go back to this rule. And this is the rule that just got me above everything else. Whatever you think that God is asking too much of you, go back to the time of Moses. Moses got all them stupid people trying to lead them all out of Egypt, finally done all this stuff, and Moses, we've all been stressed. But can you imagine meeting the angel, and he's got his sword drawn back, getting ready to kill Moses right in the middle of all that? And why? Why was he going to kill Moses? Didn't circumcise his kid on the 8th day. Was any of us in here circumcised by the 8th day or on the 8th day? Think about that. So if God was going to, for this least infraction, how many infractions would he do on us if we were really truly judged by the Bible? You dang sure wouldn't be eating no barbecue ribs. You wouldn't be eating catfish. Be a lot of things you wouldn't do. You would not miss church on Sunday. You would not do these things. There were so many things. So imagine if God was that God who ruled in that manner, none of us. He says, there's not a single one of you that is holy. He said, your righteousness, and this is the Son of God said your righteousness, what you consider holy is what? Like filthy rags, Carrie. Can you imagine that? And he's talking about menstrual cloths. He's not talking about dish rags. He's talking about nastiness. So he says the best thing. But to me, I don't see God that way. And then when I hear somebody say something stupid like that, I tell you, I have learned one thing in my life. It's like I tell everybody. With certain people in my life, I have the 1.2 second rule. That I have got 1.2 seconds to talk to somebody. When I'm at 2 seconds, I'm going beyond. Like I told the lady yesterday, when I'm at 3 seconds, Emily, I'm in danger zone. Jacob, what is my favorite phrase? Shut up, Papa. That's what I tell myself. When I've extended beyond the danger zone, I'll say, just say shut up, Papa, and I'll shut up. Because I know I'm over it. To me, God is a set of morality. He inspires morality. It is our choice. We choose. The Bible is full of it when it says morality, that His way, His path is our choice. God does not force us to choose. There are repercussions if we choose to not. But again, it's these things. You've made your choice. I've never seen God dictate me and tell me, but I've also seen when I follow and try my best to follow His rules and follow His morality, man, it's just like, it's different. It's blessed. It is blessed. So when God is quiet, we have to, like last week, we have to have things that define us. So, if we was going to list a list of moralities, this is kind of like, with the exception of this one, these are the common 5 of just rules. Not rules, these are things that should inspire us to act. These are the 5 qualities of morality. If you take God out of the picture, you don't want to follow God. Okay, don't follow God. Don't choose this path. But at least try to be a good person. Try to be a good person to where, you know, you're not, when you walk into a room or you walk into a restaurant and this type person walks into the restaurant or walks into the store, that they're not acting like freaking animals. Just be, if you don't want to choose God and you don't want to follow this set of things, then don't. But at least be a decent person. Imagine what would happen if we lived in a world that we were respectful. Kerry, what would you call respect? What would you say would be the definition of respect? Or an example of respect? Besides not calling you today. You not see my face? So think about it. What would be respect? So as an example, I respect Kerry for being here today. If there's anybody that I respect for coming to church, it's calls Kerry, because Kerry don't feel good. Kerry, how often do you feel good? Never. But she does her best to get here. I respect that. Did you notice that I don't get offended when she don't answer? If I was smart, I would learn to, hey, just look at her and kind of go, yes, just shut up, don't even ask.
Shut up, Papa.
Shut up, Papa. But the thing is that respect is to be able to look at somebody and kind of go, okay, there's a boundary, there's a wall. I remember Amber had this little ice cream set at my mama's house. The former men have a problem. I don't have that problem, not like I used to. My daddy and my nephew Joe did. Joe and my daddy, I remember one time I come home, Daddy had a spray paint. He spray painted his whole bicycle, Dory, red. Favorite color. When I say he spray painted his whole bicycle, he spray painted the tires, the handlebars, the seats, the chain, the wheels. The whole bicycle was painted red.
There you go.
Because my nephew didn't understand boundaries, one day my wife had this little cast iron, really nice little ice cream set that she liked. Guess what we did? We came home one day and it was a different color. That was not Amber's choice.
It was my patio set.
Yeah.
Ice cream table, they call it ice cream parlor table or whatever. And dude didn't come home to change the
Yeah. Now, see, the thing is that I live in a society that someone says, well, what do you think? And I laugh. A woman, like I said, when they'll say, well, what do you think about painting this color here? And I laugh about it. I said, well, I'm going to tell you like my wife tells me, that if I wanted your opinion, I'd give it to you. She says, I usually listen to what you say so I know to do the opposite. So I don't tell her things about the color of the inside of the house. I wait for her to decide. If you tell me this is what I want done, guess what? I don't care. Because I've learned to distance myself. But the thing is that respect. To be able to set boundaries, to say, I respect this person. Respect is not something that you can demand. Respect is something that you should earn. But respect is boundaries. The thing is that if you've got a person that is an idiot around you, you have to establish a boundary. Say, look, this is how you're going to be. This is how you're going to act. You know, when I remember there was a young man and I had to go to him and say, look, you can be around my family. I don't want to see your underwear. Pull your dang pants up. I don't want to see this. You're going to be respectful. So, we've got respect down. Respect is how you treat someone else and how you would want to be treated. What about responsibility? How is that a morality? What does a man do? A man is responsible. Parents are responsible. You pay your bills when you say you're going to do something. You're responsible. When you've got a job, guess what you do? You go to work. You take care of your family. You are responsible. If you say you're going to do something, guess what you do? You do it. I was very proud of Artie and Chris that you've actually got a plan, you're proceeding, you know what you're going to do. Artie gave us an update. What did that say? He said, I am responsible. I have taken my responsibility and I'm going further. Someone said something this morning, well, it's just going to be just a small crowd, because we're kind of getting to this time of year. I said, look, we've had smaller church in here. God never called me to win a popularity contest because I don't give a crap. I have to be responsible. I have to be here. Because why? God put this, and He shared this vision for this. If the day that I don't want to, Sabrina, be responsible for this, guess what? I can quit church anytime I want to. But what scares me to death, what happens if I do? Yeah. So responsibility is also known as accountability. So let's move here. Now remember, these are things that if you don't want to be a Christian, then don't follow Christianity. I don't care. But do these things and you'll find out that your life will probably start materializing in a way that God will start moving in. You say, well, wait a second, because you're blending the lines. What about fairness? How's fairness? I was watching a thing, and it was talking about this company who was laying off all these workers this time of year, while the CEO got a $100 million bonus. Think about that. These CEOs get how much money, and then you've got these lower guys that can't even. It was talking about the amount of people that have to live up with government assistance because of where they're at. And Wells Fargo was one of them. Wells Fargo. I can't remember, I think it's like 50-something% of the tellers at Wells Fargo was receiving some form of government assistance. While the CEO of Wells Fargo makes how much? I was loving it. Was it Tupac? I was watching an interview with him the other day. And he was talking about how, he says, why is it that Michael Jackson is worth all of this money and he knows people who have nothing? Why do you have a 54-room house when you only got 2 kids? You should have 2 bedrooms. Each kid have a bedroom. Why do you need all these things? Because it's about you. So fairness is, again, what would happen if preachers would be focused more upon taking care of the church and the needs of the church and not up here saying, because I need a new jet airplane because I can't ride with people. Well, so we get ideas of fairness. The thing is that fairness is as well, it's a thing that if a person is doing a job, and I've told you this thing, I'm still have to make myself aware, try to treat people fairly. There's no saying, you can shear sheep regularly, but you can nick them and kill them once. You can charge people a fair price. There's a story, and I was telling Jacob about it. A guy was complaining about the price. He says, okay. He says, you don't want to pay this price for it. He says, I understand that. He says, if I was you, I'd probably have a hard time to do it. He said, well, I could probably do this thing. He said, see, you can do it. He said, well, no, I can't. He said, that's why you're hiring somebody. He says, I don't know how to. He said, I'll tell you what I'll do. Every Saturday, I have a class that I teach people how to do these things. A few Saturdays, I can have you up to speed. Well, I can't give up my Saturdays. That's when I play golf. I do these other things. I have these other things going on. I can't give up my Saturdays. He says, and beyond that, he says, I don't have the tools. He said, well, you can rent the tools. You can rent all you need. He said, man, by the time I rented the schools and did all these things, got everything learned, he said, then as well, he says, I come start doing your job. He said, but do you have insurance in case you mess up something? Are you an LLC? Have you filed are you a legal business? Because again, I had a lady ask me one time, she says, well, I want you to paint my house. I said, okay, not a problem. She said, and I want the best deal I can get. Matter of fact, I want it cheap, Carrie. I just want it dirt cheap. I said, okay. And you are insured, right? I said, do you want the insured price or do you want the dirt cheap price? You can't have both. You're not going to get the benefit of all this stuff. Like Amber and I was talking about the other day. I had two tools, just small tools. And that was like $1,200. Just two little tools. $40,000+. So if you want to get in business, I can tell you how much it is. Spend about, David, how much money you spend on tools? Lots. You too could be in business. You have to be fair, because you can't expect somebody to work for $8 an hour when you won't work for $8 an hour. So, oh my goodness. Now we're talking about honesty. Oh my gosh, that is such a movable morality point. What is honesty? I was sitting there the other day and I was checking out, and I knew this person did not check me out on this stuff. I said, stop. I said, you need to make sure you catch this right here. She said, well, I'm glad you did that. I said, I'm glad I did it too. I said, because you realize what I'm getting ready to do. I'm getting ready to take this stuff and I've got to go do a job that I really don't want to do. I need God's blessings upon me to do this job and to do it well and do it profitably. If I stole this, because if I didn't get charged for it, I stole that. Now I'm getting ready to go do a job, Carrie, where I got to try to make money off this adventure. And guess what I want to do? I am not going to be walking in God's blessings. Does that make sense? You cannot. If you are a dishonest person, God is not going to bless that. That ain't going to happen. So there's an old saying. You screw people, you're going to get screwed. But the difference is that God has expectations of you, and it ain't like you're going to be messed up because when God is against you, and you're supposed to know, because the thing is that you can see kids running up and down the road doing stupid things all day long, right? And you go, well, look at them kids. Them kids are stupid. If they were my kids, now imagine how God feels. Compassion is everything. Without compassion for other people, what's the point? What's the point? What's the point of not living in a society where you have no compassion toward people? Compassion, another word for compassion is grace. Grace. Without grace, what do we have? God has compassion upon us. Artie and I have said this countless times when we was way out there. And he says, "Cuz." Every conversation starts with "cuz." You know it's going to be a good one. He said, don't you ever think sometimes that we're going to stand before God? He's going to go, God, I'm so stupid. That's my part I added. He said, that's not what I said. That's not what I meant. The thing is that God has compassion on us because we fail Him constantly. Constantly, and yet God goes, I've got compassion on you. What does He expect us to have? Compassion. The measure that we give is the measure that we receive. This last one was a new thing. Somebody give me the definition of the empathy.
Check for others' feelings, I reckon.
There you go. How is that different? I almost was going to jump on that one, Artie.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Well, I know exactly what I was going to say.
The problem is that what if I didn't care how you felt?
Right.
And what if I was bigger and badder than you and I didn't care how you felt?
Beyond.
And the thing is, you would fight me, but the thing is that, you know, you'd lose, you'd still fight for it. But the point is that there are people who do not care for other people's feelings and how they feel. Somebody asked me, what's your thoughts on this? I said, I don't have thought on that. If you want to know the problem with it, I've told people, I don't give a crap if you go marry a signpost. If you want to marry a dog, I don't care. I don't care. Just don't parade it in front of my family. Don't parade it in front of my kids. Because I believe in a society that if a drag queen can go teach kids at a library, then a Christian can go teach kids at a library. Because I believe in fairness. And the thing is that if that man thinks that his world, that he was all born wrong, I think I was born wrong. I think I should have been born, I know my daughter did for the longest time and probably still does. I was born around family. Other families go on vacation. My family doesn't go on vacation. We've all wished that our parents had more and done things. Have we all not? We all wish that we was born naturally sexy like Artie. Some of us are just fat by nature.
That's natural.
Some of us are not happy with how we were born. But the thing is that you can be confused and don't expect me, but the other side of it is, Amber and I was talking about was, if you approach when somebody says, my pronouns are this, my pronouns are that, okay, then I'm going to keep on going.
Yes.
I'm not going to sit here and argue because this person wants you to argue. They want you to address them like that. It's like my grandkids would say, if you choose to be Delulu, then be Delulu. I'm not going to be that way. Don't try to make me be this way. But the thing is, I understand how you feel that sometimes you're born wrong. Like I said, has anybody ever felt like this, born at the wrong time? Yeah. Now, what is the difference between you feeling like you was born at the wrong time, or you feeling like you should have been this, or you feeling like that, and another person feeling this way? Everybody should be entitled to their feelings. And if you want to do this thing, just understand something. I'm going to do my best to not laugh at you. When I seen a guy the other day, and I'm like, oh yeah, every day. How in the world? You know, that's just. But again, that's your choice. That's your choice. You have that freedom. I am not the one who is condemning you. I'm not the one who's going to condemn you. My thing is that I care about what other people feel. Because when you do not care about how other people feel, then you are a pretty much useless person.
On the empathy right there, if you get to the point where you have empathy on somebody, when you're Christian walk to me, that means you're taking everything into consideration, just like God's grace is sufficient for us. But you take that and you really apply that when you really want to say something. No, it's not what I need to be doing. Lord, talk me better than this. You actually grow, I think.
Oh yeah, this morning, I had something I wanted to say. And guess what? I thought, no, it's not the right time. Wait. And then, the thing that I wanted to say got answered without me saying anything. When you choose, this is like I was telling Jacob the other day, when you are, and I hate the word manager or boss, I hate that phrase, because that phrase, nobody wants a boss. Raise your hands if you want a boss. Matter of fact, is it a term of endearment to call somebody, oh, I just love you because you're so bossy. That's my favorite thing about you. You're bossy. Am I wrong? Nobody wants a boss. Everybody wants a leader. Everybody wants the leadership to stand up and be leadership. Manager. So you're telling me I can't do my job without you, so you got to manage me? Matter of fact, the worst insult is say, well, you're a micromanager. My wife says, you've been a manager too long. You've been a boss too long. Yeah. But like I told Jacob, I said, now Jacob, I said, the thing is, I said, as an example, I said, David is going through a situation right now that they've hired a new manager because the last manager didn't meet expectations. Am I incorrect? So this new manager who's maybe not ran a collision center, he's got his ideas and he's came in now and he's told everybody his rules. Doesn't matter how they was hired or why they was in that situation, that they had you hire people at this place Why they had to make these concessions to hire people. I was telling the person yesterday, and we was talking about the differences between the insurance industry and COVID and what happened to it. And the biggest thing that happened across the board in society through COVID is so many people looked at their lives and said, this ain't worth it. I'm done. I don't want to live this way no more. So what happened is that body shops, because again, started losing technicians. People says, I'm done with it. These guys come in, they have this amount of money that they have to generate every month, and if you don't have technicians to do the work, you're not going to get to work. You got to have the technicians to get to work. So this guy who's coming in now, and he's came in and he's leading by rules. He's coming in there, I'm the new sheriff in town, and by gosh, this is how it's going to be. What happens in an industry like that is I was watching a video last night. It's really interesting because a guy said that he was sitting there, and a real sharp guy, because he was talking about how, and why I say he's a sharp guy, his wife had said, thank you, is that a hint? His wife had said,
No.
His wife had said, honey, I'm really craving an Arby's ham sandwich. I mean, a Hardee's ham sandwich. And he's talking about his police thing. He says, so I went to Hardee's to go get my wife a ham sandwich. I was like, what a guy. You know, you're whipped. But the thing is that he goes to Hardee's,
I had him.
and he's going to go get his wife a ham sandwich. He walks into Hardee's, Emily, and guess what's in Hardee's? Another person standing there behind the counter. And they're standing there, and nobody is in Hardee's. Next thing you know, another customer walks into Hardee's. And so this is a news report that they had after all this. Come to find out, they call the police. They walked back there, and there were sandwiches half made, fries were still in the fryer, cooking in the fryer, and there wasn't an employee one in Hardee's. Doors unlocked. Well, apparently, they've got a new manager. And the new manager chewed everybody out, told them all of his new rules, how it's going to be, and if you don't like it, hit the road, because this is the new order. You know what the entire shift did?
See ya.
They walked out the door. See, that's rules. That is rules. That is a rules-based society. The thing is that these people says, and this is the problem with businesses now. They know, and it happened in our generation. We are the ones who did it because we've watched our parents. I remember as a young man in this business, and I watched a guy who worked for USAA, Dave Hayes. Dave Hayes was like, I think, 30 days from retiring. They walk in and candy. How close is your father?
They allowed it long enough that what, 6 months, less than 6 months?
It was less than that. It was just a few weeks
Yeah.
that he was able. Because if he was not able to work, he would not have got his full retirement. Companies across the board have cheated and treated employees like crap. And so during COVID, that broke everybody. And so they all have just fled this whole thing. And they're trying to recover, and they cannot. That's why people are starting doing these other gigs. Because they said, hey, look, the quality of life has to be worth something. I've talked to Larry Beaver, and this is the last thing I'm going to say. And Larry and I love Larry, but Larry came and he finally admitted. He says, man, I'm trapped. He says, I'm trapped. He said, I've got this baby. My baby's growing up without me. He says, but I got to make this money. So I've got to go. And he's gone how often?
2 weeks in, 2 weeks out.
It don't sound bad. Man, I get 2 weeks off. But be gone from your family for 2 weeks.
He's done that with 2 kids.
Yeah.
He's just not talking about one, he's done it with 2, but yeah, it's a shame.
And it weighs on him, because the thing is that
It does
he can't
weigh on him.
live, he cannot make less money. Cannot do it. One thing my boss told me, he said, Monty, there's got to be something said about quality of life over quantity.
He's got
of money.
used to the living. Most people get, when they're used to that living, it's hard to step
Yeah,
away from
they're
it.
trapped. So the thing is that these are rules that society has, but to me, God is a system of morality. God is the supreme morality. And we follow these things right here, even when God is quiet, God doesn't reveal, God doesn't do anything. But if you are honestly, basically trying to be a good person, good father, you know, the thing is that I don't care what you have. I'm not talking about religious principles and how all that lays out in your salvation. I'm just talking about if you live your life as a good person, and at the end of this, there is no judgment, no God, no nothing. At least you've lived a life that's worth living. And the thing is that if there's nothing at the end of it, but what if there is? What if there is? I believe in the thing that if you try to live by that, eventually it's going to spin you off, and all of a sudden you're going to meet God and all this thing, and then you're going to understand that this is the real identity of God, not this other identity of God that they portray to make you feel like God is this totalitarian ruler who dictates all these things. That's not God. I don't believe that that's God. I've not seen that. I've not seen that God in my world. God doesn't make me get up every morning and come to church on Sunday. He doesn't do it. He does it because I care and I love, and I'm more responsible. So all these things. No, somebody dismisses.
Gracious Heavenly Father, thank you for today and the word that was preached here today. Thank you for the Holy Spirit. And I just ask you, please help us think about what we've studied today in the week to come, and just watch over us as we travel back with the work and bring our children back to school, and just ask all the things in the name of Jesus Christ.
Amen.
Can we